occasionally. I'm not gonna make a habit of it as we swim through the cesspool of the internet. Welcome everyone to the spoiler room, and yes, so excited! It is another episode of the horror of 1988. Yes, where each month we are covering a different movie that is a horror film, and it is from 1988 because there was so many horror films in 88. And I wanted to cover some, and you voted on them, and that's what we're covering this month. And I can't think of a better group of folks to join me tonight to talk about tonight's film, which is Maniac Cop from 1988. And with me, she is back with us in the spoiler room, the horror retrospective. You check out her videos, they're wonderful. She's got far more insight than I'll ever have. It is Kara. How you doing, Kara?
Doing okay, and thanks for having me back.
I'm very excited to have you back to talk some horror, especially this one, Maniac Cop. It's a very interesting film. And also with us tonight is my right-hand man, the man who just keeps coming back. He's that masochist. It is none other than Mr. Ian Simmons. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to this one. Although I have not seen Maniac Cop parts 2 or 3. So I don't know if that's missing context in terms of my enjoyment of this first one.
No, it's not. We're going to keep it mostly to Maniac Cop 1. Actually, no, you're done. You're gone already. So we're
okay.
not.
See ya.
No, we're only talking about Maniac Cop tonight. But before we do that, I have to. I just want to say this really quick. Big wrestling fan, 80s and 90s. Grew up during the gold letter WWF, and my wife and I bonded over WCW when they went up in their heyday. And I just have to say, hey, yo, it is unfortunate. A very influential wrestler passed recently, Razor Ramon, aka Scott Hall. He's an interesting individual. I got to see him live when he was doing the indie circuit stuff down in Waukesha at the I forgot what it is, the county fair, the dome, or wherever they have it down there. Great Lakes Wrestling had them there, and I got to see them live, and that was interesting. So wrestling fan there, Ian?
No.
Oh.
Well,
Kara,
it's not that I dislike wrestling. I think it's cool. I just am not like into it to the point where I can talk knowledgeably.
Well, see, growing up in Milwaukee, that's the cult. That was when I was growing up in the 80s, especially. Wrestling was the thing. My dad would take me down to the Mecca. Yes, that's how old I am, folks. When Mecca Arena was the center before the Bradley Center, aka B&M, whatever it's called, B&O Bank, whatever it is now. But the Mecca Center, we used to go down there. He used to get tickets from a guy. We go down there every 2 or 3 months and watch AWA wrestling. Back in the day, before when there were more divisions, regional shows, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. And Kara, you're down south. You big wrestling down there. You ever get into wrestling?
I remember watching a little bit in the 80s as a kid. And then, of course, I never really got into it. My boyfriend watches, so I'm more of a casual viewer now, so it's the only reason I know who Razor Ramon is. But more than anything, I'm fascinated with those little razor patterns on his trunks. To me, they look more like hamburgers.
Well, he was definitely an interesting individual, part of the Wolfpack. He was with Big Sexy Kevin Nash, who played Shredder in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, I think it was, or maybe it was the original. 2. He played him in 2, the Mega Shredder. He played the Mutant Shredder in 2.
And he was also a stripper in Magic Mike.
And he was a stripper in Magic Mike as well. Yeah. So Kevin Nash. Yeah. Kevin Nash, Big Sexy, very tall, large, another great wrestler. They were a tag team duo for quite some time. And yeah, Razor unfortunately had some, his private life, like a lot of wrestlers. Unfortunately, it's a hard life and they go through a lot. But yeah, he was a cool guy. So he was one of those where his character in the ring, from all the stories of people that I've read up on that did know him, did not reflect who he was outside of the ring. Most, the hey yo, the real attitude guy, that was the character. Because folks, wrestling, men have to admit it, is just soap opera for men. Okay, you've got relationships, you've got breakups, you've got tragedy, you've got all those things, and you even got a voiceover if you listen to the TV broadcast with the guys narrating. So,
let's pull over the car, Mark. Soap operas are soap operas for men.
Oh, yeah. Well.
I remember being in third grade. I was at a babysitter's after school, and I would sit and watch television, watch these crappy, Guiding Light General Hospital, whatever it was.
Well, because cartoons weren't on. Because cartoons weren't on during the week.
It was television.
Yeah,
there you go.
True.
So
that's true. I watched soap operas for a while because my mom watched them. So when I was home from vacation during the week, you get that week off. You're waiting for that. You had that dead area from the morning cartoons and the afternoon cartoons. You had that middle of soap operas and talk shows, and you had to deal with that because mom ran the TV then. And so I watched As the World Turns, was our soap opera. That's the one that she watched. And then I got out of it for a while, and then I got married. And my wife was into Days of Our Lives. Okay. And I avoided soap operas usually, but I was home one day and I watched it, and suddenly one of the characters, Marliana, where I'm watching, all of a sudden the room goes dark, there's wind, her eyes go red, she starts talking like a demon, and I'm like, what's going on? Being the horror person, see where I'm going with this. And oh yeah, they did a whole storyline for I don't know how many months where she was possessed and supernatural, and there was a demon, and oh yeah, they went there. I think it was to compete with a soap opera called Passions, which was doing a horror.
That's right. Yeah,
was coming out.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
Oh, were you familiar with Passions, Cara?
I heard of it. I never watched it. I know Spike from the Buffy show liked watching that.
Yep. Yeah. But I think they came up with that storyline to compete with them, but that hooked me. So for a while we watched Days of Our Lives as well. And then I tapered off when the demon got exorcised months later. But then I got into the other characters, like the one guy, Stefano, who was the big bad guy who you thought he was dead, but then like months later he would show up again. Dun dun dun. He was
much like Matt Cordell, the main character in Maniac Cop.
We're gonna sorry, didn't mean to go on a tangent, but about soap operas. But yes, much like Cordell in the film, we're talking about Maniac Cop. And Cara, would you mind giving the synopsis of Maniac Cop? Otherwise, you could take a pass, and we'll give it to Ian and see if he gets.
I can take a shot at it. I'm probably gonna mess it up a little bit. I don't know
this show on this show there is no mess up. Oh, don't worry about the character names. So we'll take care of that. So
I'm gonna be honest. Mostly only watched because Bruce Campbell's in this. So apparently he's fooling around on his wife, and we've got a cop who I forget what he was set up for. He went to prison, somehow broke out, and he's gone nuts, and he's going around killing people, and now everyone's afraid of cops. And they're just randomly killing innocent officers, and they're just not getting the right one, and a big St. Patrick's Day parade.
Well, that pretty much sums it up. Okay, I'm going to say again, we have spoiler room karma because we have St. Patty's Day just around the corner, and we happen to be covering a film that has St. Patrick's Day parade that plays a part in the end. And this was a film that was picked at random last month. So, look at that.
We just need to let this live stream go on for another 2 hours and 20 minutes, and we'll officially be a St. Patrick's Day episode.
I would not do that to you guys.
Yes, I thought you planned it on purpose, actually.
No, I didn't. I didn't even notice the week when I planned out the shows. I just picked the shows, the show order, And I try to do this episode like the third week in March, and all of a sudden I was like looking at the calendar yesterday, and I'm like, oh wait, as I'm watching Maniac Cop, I'm like, St. Patty's Day. Wow, how are we topical? We are just on it. We are, look at that.
We are the gold at the end of the rainbow.
Or at least the pot. Anyway. Sorry. Ian, Maniac Cop, your initial thought with this film?
I have a weird history with this movie. I remember when I was a little kid, I was probably 13 or 14 because it came out in 88.
Right.
I was 11 back then. I have memories of it being on TV, like Channel 50, like afternoon horror movies. So this probably would have been a couple years later, but I never really watched. I watched parts of it. And so when I watched it for this show, it's probably the first time I've sat through it start to finish.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's why I've never seen any of the sequels. 'Cause I'm like, well, I've never really seen the first one. Yeah, it's a cool movie. It's just so strange knowing who Bruce Campbell is now to watch him in a pretty straight, serious part where he's just like acting. It's not even like he's an Ash character who's like the main handsome guy and he's kind of like goofy and everything. No, he's like the framed cop who's trying to, write his name and everything. I'm like, I don't know if I like this Bruce.
Give me goofy Bruce. Why we got serious Bruce here?
I think it's because serious Bruce, I think, is a little bit dodgy in the acting department, if I'm honest. I mean, I haven't seen anything in recently where he's, playing something serious, but play to your strengths, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. And Cara, you mentioned you watched this mainly for Bruce Campbell. Do you remember when you first saw it?
Oh, I want to say about 2010, 2011 was the first time I saw it. And then I got a quick refresher course just so I could brush up on this.
And what'd you think of it?
I enjoy it. I think it's well written. Even if it's serious or not, I think the story holds pretty well. I don't really notice any loopholes, if at all. I think it's one of those that even though you can tell it's from a certain time period, it's still aged well. There's really nothing there that kind of, you look at it and it's like, oh, you're an eyesore.
Would you agree, Ian, on that?
I do. I mean, that's the thing is I didn't realize until the opening credits that Larry Cohen wrote this.
Right.
The great kind of like genre writer director. I mean, he's known for a lot of his directing stuff. I mean, Bill Lustig directed Maniac Cop, but Larry Cohen wrote it. I mean, he gave us these great kind of social horror movies in the 80s, like The Stuff, I think is one of my favorites.
I love The Stuff.
Yeah. That's one of the other frustrating things. He did so much stuff. I actually interviewed Larry Cohen a long time ago, and it's one of those things. If I had picked up like, oh yeah, he did Maniac Cop, I probably would have watched it and asked him like a ton of questions about it, because yeah, it does hold up. I like that it's almost like a Batman movie, kind of the city gripped in fear and vigilantism and all this other stuff, and the serial killer cop part of it is more wrapped up in this supernatural thriller, as you kind of pointed out in your interview with Robert Z'dar, which people should definitely check out, and we'll probably talk about a little bit later, I imagine. It's not like the straight slasher film. It's like an actual movie with stuff on its mind.
Well, I mean, when it came out in the 80s, I imagine it maybe harkened a little bit more to slasher, because you've got a character and the Maniac Cop Cordell, and he's going around just killing innocent people. So you got that part with a knife, with a wonderful baton that has a knife in it, which is actually pretty creepy. And you're like, I could see that being real. So yeah, you do have that angle with it, but it is really a crime procedural in many ways. I mean, this is almost like a late 70s Nighthawks type of territory. If it wasn't quite for the fact that he was more of this supernatural guy who could just take bullets, and he's all scarred and everything from the prison attack he had, which we'll talk about in a little bit. If he was just a straight guy, Yeah, you could just, it'd be fall in line with one of those, like those late 70s crime films that we've reviewed a few here.
Well, I haven't seen the sequels, but I've seen some of the makeup from this, some of the sequels. So it looks like like in the second one, he looks like Jason at the end of Jason Takes Manhattan.
Yeah.
So I imagine he's dead and reanimated in those movies. But the thing about Maniac Cop is, I don't think he's ever actually dead in this movie, because there is that. The whole thing is he was kind of the hero cop who ended up taking a fall and going to prison, right? Or was he a corrupt guy?
Well, he wasn't a hero cop as they described him. He was an old school cop of shoot first, ask questions later. He wasn't corrupt. He was a rogue cop. He was, pardon my term, but America cop. He was a guy who was very trigger happy, and any perp he had no problems putting down.
And that's why he had so many enemies when he went into the joint.
Right.
And they attack him in the shower, and he's left for dead. And it turns out that, when he's in the coroner's office or whatever, they're about to operate on him. They realize, a couple people realize he still has a pulse, and he's just barely hanging on. But the trauma of, going near death and being, killed and left for dead drives him insane, and then he starts going around killing people. So he's still just a human being, right? He's just psycho.
Yeah, I mean, they play
up until the very end. Yeah,
up to the very end. The cops kind of think he's supernatural, but I never got the impression that he was supposed to be. He was just very fortunate to still live after that attack, which, since they picked Robert Z'dar, wonderful character actor, many films under the very large individual. So you could almost buy into that he would survive attack like that, where many others probably wouldn't. But I never got the supernatural angle with him, just that he was wronged, more like the Burning type of approach almost.
Good call out. Yeah.
Cara, what about you? Did you ever get the feeling that they were trying to say he was supernatural in this one? I know he is in the second one, but this one, did it feel more like he was just like your Jason or the Burning, where it was just someone who was horribly scarred?
I haven't seen any of the sequels, so I don't have anything to compare by, but I didn't really get that impression. It was just more kind of this really big guy with good genes, and he could really kick butt.
And he could. And I mean, Robert Z'dar is known for his stunt work. And yeah, I was very fortunate that I got a chance to talk to him, because he talked about his other experiences too. Like when he was on Tango and Cash, and because he was the guy who fought Sylvester Stallone in the prison in that film. And he did stunt work in that and fight work as well. So, he just loved acting. And so he did a lot of his stunts, I believe, in Maniac Cop as well. And there's some pretty wild scenes in this film, all things considering.
But real quick, you mentioned Stallone.
Yeah.
One thing that has always bugged me is the poster art for this movie, where it's like the shadowy cop holding up the badge or whatever. It doesn't look like Robert Starr. It looks like a zombified Sylvester Stallone. Very odd.
Now I want to see a zombified Sylvester Stallone.
Now we're probably only a few years away from that, but
But Cara, in the pantheon of slashers that we got, especially from the 80s, what do you think of Cordell's story and the character for Maniac Cop?
Trying to remember who Cordell was.
That was the Maniac Cop. He was the bad guy.
Sorry, I have my cast list pulled up, and I'm scrolling through them like,
no, that's okay.
I'm just bad with names. I thought he was well written. We really didn't get to see too much of him until the end, but I like all of the mystique and misdirection. Like, who is it? Is it this person? Is it that person? And then, I don't know, like, for somebody so big and strong, he kind of seems to be cat-like. Like, he just pops up here and there, and it's like, where'd you come from?
He did seem to move well for a larger individual. But I'm glad you brought up the misdirection, because I thought this is where I think this film, why it has its cult status, and those who may turn away from it, I think you're missing out, especially if you like crime procedural, because there's a wonderful segment right in the beginning where we're introduced to Cordell. We never see his face, but there's this kind of montage as he's putting on his uniform with the belt and the gloves and the gun. And later on, we get Bruce Campbell's character, who they direct the scenes in a similar way, where he's putting on his belt at the same camera angle, and it's framed similar as well, kind of alluding that maybe Bruce Campbell is him, though he's a lot shorter than.
Yeah, that's always something that drives me crazy. Is like, okay, who are you trying to fool here with their clever direction? It's one of those things I think that works on a script. Like if you say that they're going to frame it similar to the opening to draw suspicion, but the second you look at Bruce Campbell, like, no, this guy's a string bean. He's not like lifting anybody up off the ground. But no, I love that the opening of this movie, because it's just like the kind of the black background and that mysterious, all these like close-ups and things, and it's weird because you've got like the soft white cotton cop gloves and this weird, almost like a soft whistling kind of soundtrack. That's the one thing I remember from when I watched this when I was a little kid, was that opening. It still kind of creeps me out even as an adult.
Well, one of the things I found interesting, I'm glad you brought up the whistling, was the theme song for the Maniac Cop. It's kind of like this child lullaby. It's really weird. It's whistled, and it's almost like this creepy lullaby. It's not like something that you would equate with this brutal killer, which he is almost, I don't know, signifying maybe a childlike brain thought in his head, the way his brain is working. Or
well, this movie is very different than giallo films, but it does have some of those kind of hallmarks to it, including that, kind of the creepy little,
music,
theme.
The creepy theme.
Yeah, it's like a mystery involving a killer, and there's detectives trying to solve this stuff, and there's far less nude women being hacked to pieces to qualify as a giallo. So yeah.
And actually, that's, for the type of film this is, you would probably expect there to be a lot more gratuitous nudity in this film, but there isn't. Kara, is that kind of a surprise of not having at least that exploitation element in here, where it feels like it would normally? Or no? Hello? Are you still with us, Kara?
Sorry. The audio cut out a little bit. I didn't quite catch the question. Sorry.
No, I was just, what I had asked was, is it surprising that for a film like this, we don't actually have your standard trope of a gratuitous nude, at least one gratuitous nude scene in this film?
I don't think it's really necessary. I think the story's gritty enough. You have enough, I guess, like mystery and suspense going on to where I really don't miss it. Plus, there aren't really too many women to choose from in the film anyway.
That's true. It is a guy heavy cast. We only have 3 female characters total. We have the wife of Bruce Campbell's character. We have the record keeper lady who works in the police station, who becomes far more relevant to the plot than you might expect. And then we have the girlfriend of Bruce Campbell, who is, a cop in her own right. Excuse me. So yeah, we only have those 3 female characters. But Kara, what did you think of the female characters in this film?
I like how they kind of give it away when you bring up the record keeper woman, because they who was it, Teresa, the girlfriend, she says, oh, she's been with the department so long you forget she's there. And it kind of hints to the kind of like the whole mystery thing, like it's always the least likely person that's behind everything.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they allude to that you kind of suspect the minute they mention it. I knew first time I watched this too, it's just like, oh, it's her, she's connected some way, because they drop earlier. Oh, he's getting his information from the police, station some way. And then, they mention her. So you're like, okay, so she's connected. which she is, but wasn't quite expecting the connection that we got with this record keeper character. Ian, what'd you think of her?
I like that kind of a weird relationship, especially the way it kind of turns during the, going into the third act, because she's kind of helping him and being a support to the Maniac Cop until she's no longer useful to him, and then things happen. I'm sorry, I got a little bit distracted because I made the mistake of looking up Larry Cohen's filmography. And at the top of it on IMDb, and at the top of it, it said Maniac Cop. I'm like, well, I know Larry Cohen died a couple of years ago, but why is Maniac Cop at the top of his list? And then in red letters, it said announced. So I clicked on announced, I saw a movie poster, Maniac Cop, co-directed by Nicholas Winding Refn, written by Ed Brubaker, who's written a ton of like Marvel comics and shows and gave us the Winter Soldier storyline. So I don't know what the hell's going on, but I'm very happy to be living in this reality because that sounds bizarre.
It sounds like it's going to be insane if it comes out of development hell. That'll be very interesting.
Although it's taking place in LA, so I don't know if it's going to lose
come
its
on,
impact.
you got to have it in New York. But no, I liked the record keeper character. I liked her connection to Cordell, the backstory they get. It's interesting how much story they're able to provide in this film for the runtime you have. You get to learn about her, about him. You even get to learn about our one lieutenant, who is played by the incomparable Mr. Atkins, who seemed to have all the answers and nobody seemed to listen. Ian, what do you think of Atkins?
I love Tom Atkins. I also love, and I was surprised to see this, that, because he's played this sort of part before.
Right.
The as Mad Magazine used to call them, the cop with the theory no one believes in, the Akwat Nobi. But usually he survives, even if the ending is kind of tragic and horrifying like Halloween 3. But yeah, he gets straight up tossed out a window and crashes onto a car in this one. And then Richard Roundtree, who plays was he the mayor or the commissioner?
He's the commissioner.
Or something?
He's the commissioner. Right? Yeah.
He and the other guy who were kind of involved in the Cordell cover-up, they get horribly murdered. I mean, this thing is vicious. And you're right, for an hour and 25-minute movie, it's very tight. Mm-hmm. And I also love that we get the Matt Cordell origin story, but we see it from his perspective, his memory, because we go to, I guess it's when he's on guy's little hideout in the docks or whatever, and he's just kind of sleeping, and we see that one shaft of light across his eye, because you don't really see his face until the very end, which is kind of cool, as we've mentioned. But yeah, you see his eye, and he's kind of like falling asleep and having this memory, and then he wakes up, and it's a great way, like so many other things. There are so many conventions in this horror movie that are tweaked just a little bit to make it unique.
Yeah, I'll agree. I think that's what appeals to me quite a bit, is that you're going into it. I mean, the movie's called Maniac Cop. You've got the crazy guy in the front. It's from the 80s. You're like, oh, I know how exactly this is going to play out. And then they spin the tropes a bit. Cara, what about you with Mr. Tom Atkins? How'd you feel about his character in this?
I think he did well. I don't know if it's just a me thing. I think I don't know how well he and Jack Forrest were friends, but to me it felt like you're a little too lenient on him. Why aren't you more suspicious, or just kind of jumping on that bandwagon? Like, did you or didn't you? Like, no, I believe you. I'll help you out. Where's your girlfriend? I'll go pick her up.
Yeah. Yeah, it was one thing too with Bruce Campbell's character, how they thought it's one of those things where I've seen it in so many movies where you're looking at, as we mentioned, you're looking at his character and you're looking at the two cops interrogating him and they're presenting the evidence. And I'm looking at it going, really? You really think I'm like, this is really, I mean, because later on too, while they have him in custody, Tom Atkins' character, the lieutenant, I forgot his name offhand, but the lieutenant brings the girlfriend to Bruce to interrogate he did give them some time or whatever. I'm not quite sure. Let them know that they know Cordell is an actual person, and they give the backstory. And then while they're talking to him, Cordell's just laying waste to this precinct.
It is very reminiscent of the Hitcher, which was a couple of years before this.
Oh God, yeah, the Hitcher. But Car, what do you think of that? Where they thought it was him? I mean, especially when the precinct is annihilated. I mean, there's guys that were hung, and you look at Campbell, and you're like, there's no way he would have strung a guy up. I mean, what do you think of these cops' approach to thinking he was the killer?
I'd say by that point, you definitely have to consider, okay, well, he was tucked away somewhere else. Who ran around doing all of this? And it just kind of doesn't make sense there at that point. But I don't know. I guess it just keeps the story moving. Plus, he's already on the lynch mob list anyway.
That's true. He is. So because they think he killed his wife, which he wasn't. Which again, as much as they play at Cordell being a mindless killer, he thinks enough to, with the help of the records keeper who's been tormenting the wife of Bruce Campbell. I should bring it up. I am sorry, folks. I fail miserably as a host. I don't have the characters in front of me, but
just call him Bruce Campbell. It's fine.
Just Bruce Campbell. But you have her calling the wife, who already you could tell has had, has emotional issues or trauma of some kind. She's very paranoid. She should not be the wife of a cop. Let's just say because she's always concerned that he's going to be hurt, and just they've had trouble with their therapy and everything. But so you've got the records keeper lady calling her nightly saying, you really think he's not in danger? He's not the killer, throwing that off. And then Cordell kills her on the street and tosses her in the hotel room where Bruce and his girlfriend were to frame him. And I'm like sitting there going, for the mindless killer he is, this is actually a rather elaborate frame up rather than just the mindless killer, and I'm like, I think that gives him just a little bit of depth. Wouldn't you agree, Ian?
Yeah, maybe. Or it could just be, he saw that she had come out of that hotel room or whatever, just like these kind of primitive connections. I don't know how elaborate this setup was.
Well, he kind of made it easy. If your hotel room's within walking distance from your own house, you're kind of asking for it.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah, I thought about that too. I'm like, okay, if you're going to do something, like get in a car and like drive, especially if you're the only vehicle in the family.
No one will ever suspect it.
Go ahead and cross county lines while you're at it.
Exactly, right?
Well, he's a cop. He's busy. He doesn't have time to go. I don't have time to drive to have my affair. I'm just going to go to the hotel and the motel in the street.
I'm just going to go to the hotel 4 blocks down or whatever. Like, not a very good cop, are you, sir?
Well, actually, to your point, Mark, I think there was some kind of a line about. I think it was from Maniac. I watched this a couple weeks ago, as I think I mentioned, because I got the schedule confused. I thought we were talking about this 2 weeks ago. Yeah. But I think one of the cops had mentioned that Jack Forrest, Bruce Campbell's character, might have been on PCP or something like that. Because PCP was a big buzzword in like cop dramas and things back in the 80s.
Oh, yeah, especially late 80s. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they might have said, like, how could this string bean have done all these horrific things? Well, maybe he was, juiced to the gills, and that's how he did it.
Because, that's I mean, I've heard of PCP affecting some people's strength and all, but still, I'm just like, have you seen the guy? I mean, he's still quite spindly at this point.
Well, but I mean, that's the whole thing. Is like there are people who have been on that drug that have been shot, much like Matt Cordell, shot multiple times, and they just keep coming. And it's like their brain doesn't know that their body's dead.
Though I love the one line, I shot him multiple times. That's more than a bulletproof vest. I think I shot him in the face. I'm like, when did you shoot him in the face? We didn't get to see you shoot him in the face. I mean, scar tissue, maybe.
That's the other thing is like the makeup in this movie is very bizarre. I think it's a good job, but my problem is the wounds, the lacerations on Cordell's face look very fresh. It looks like he got cut up in that prison like last week, not like, because there's like open blood and it's very glistening.
Well, New York, it's the climate. It takes a long time for those things to heal. I don't.
Yeah, that
fall skin condition. Humidity.
Yeah, see?
Yes.
Skin conditions. Thank you, Kara. See, she's got the explanation. There you go.
Yeah.
It's some kind of condition, a crazy condition. Mentioning about the setup, how this kind of plays a component. I will say they don't ride that train too long as far as everybody getting him, because the minute he gets put into the police van to be carried away, because they think some of the cops on the street during the St. Patty's Day parade, which all the cops are disappointed they're missing out on. I loved that. They see him across the street and they lock him in the van while Cordell is chasing his girlfriend and fellow cop upstairs. And he's not in there long before Cordell steals the police van. So even though, you do have this angle of him being set up, it doesn't last that long, him on the run as a fugitive. So I did like that. I like that angle to where they didn't run with it that long. Because sometimes movies like this will run with it for you're like, he's literally right there. How do you not see him? Yeah.
Well, something you just said, Mark, made me think that you might be right about that hotel setup deal, because Cordell still knows how to drive a police van.
He does.
He's not completely brain dead and insane. He knows how to drive a van and elude cops and all this other stuff.
He does. They try to say he was brain dead, but he's not. He there's function there, quite a bit. And what'd you think of the Teresa Mallory character, Kara? That's the girlfriend, the one who takes on Cordell. I think she fights him more than anybody else in this film.
I think she held her own fairly well, especially for it being such an action heavy film and all this running around, and she has to, she gets handcuffed at one point and she has to get out of that situation just to avoid getting attacked. But I think she did well, pretty good acting. I really don't have any complaints against her. The only real curiosity I have is because they don't really make her out to be this very feminine woman anyway. They say she can hold her own, which I kind of would have liked to see a little bit more of that.
You mean just in talking with her fellow cops, or just fighting more with Cordell?
Yeah, I mean, like if even just like the fight scenes are just fighting against her own fellow cops just to get people to listen to her, or just don't handcuff me. Hello, she has training. Why can't she just easily topple someone over?
That's true, though. I did kind of like how she handled the situation, because the commissioner and the captain are going to go to they're like, enough of this. They capture her because she's considered an accessory to the murder of the entire precinct, which again, little far. I'm like, really, guys? Like, not giving at least a little benefit here. Jump to conclusions, but they go off and they get killed. And then you've got the one cop going, "Hey, I don't have to take you to get to jail right away." And she's like, "Yeah, you do." She's just like, yeah.
I've been really happier to see a film jerk, get it
right
than with that cop. I'm like, oh,
well, because
what are you doing?
He tries to have not so pleasant relationship with her when she just shoots him down. He's then complaining in the hallway, I could be out at the St. Patty's Day parade, but I'm stuck here with you. And he gets killed good. Car, what'd you think of the kill scene? I know that sounds weird, but it's a horror movie, folks. Yeah.
Well, the punishment has to fit the crime. If it's not a satisfying death, then you didn't do it right.
See, I think for Maniac Cop, the remake, I know it's set in LA, so it's not going to work, but it would have been great if they had a St. Patrick's Day thing and you have that scene where he's like escorting her down this hallway and he says, you know what? I should be down there on the street right now in the parade. And at that moment, Maniac Cop jumps out and throws him out the window into the St. Patrick's Day parade.
In true horror fashion, yes, that would be.
Ed Brubaker, call me. You can have that one for free.
But no, I liked her character quite a bit. She's you know, again, for a film like this, we have a fairly strong female character, I think, with her. You know, I mean, for the it's 88, okay. I mean, not exactly.
I can't be with you, either of you, on this one. I thought she was. I didn't buy her as a cop. I thought her acting was, you know, she had producer's girlfriend written all over her. I don't know. I'm like, what is this?
Great. Now I'm just picturing a credit scroll and it says this part and it doesn't have the name. It just has producer's girlfriend.
Yeah.
You know, I go ahead, Kerr.
Oh no, sorry. I was going to say I think I'm more spoiled on the way women are written today. Not that they're more masculine, but they're a lot more assertive. She was still pretty passive, not exactly demure because she's running around with a married man. But I would have liked to have seen more force or more effort from her.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, she does get away from Cordell, but you know, and goes through a window in that, and in a very impressive stunt, because it looked like the actress was actually out on that ledge, and I'm just like, wow, okay. I mean, we can't afford too many stunt doubles, apparently.
Yeah, I'd like to hear that story because that was pretty chilling. It took me out of the movie, but just in the sense of like, wow, that looks really dangerous.
It did look dangerous, just like Bruce Campbell later on, who he gets out of the jail, out of the prison car, and he's hanging on the side of it as Cordell is driving through a wall, and I'm like, that's Bruce. He's actually hanging on the side of a truck. It's not Bruce when they go over the water, into the water, but
well, considering all the crap Sam Raimi put him through, you know, probably ever since high school, he's like, whatever.
That's very true. He does go through. He has gone through the ringer with Mr. Sam Raimi. Yeah, you know, it's just we've mentioned the names. You got Roundtree, Z'dar, Campbell, Tom Atkins. It's impressive to see who's in this little horror film about a crazy cop. It really, you know, some really familiar faces in it.
Well, it's also nice that, you know, you kind of mentioned that cast list is almost like geek catnip. It could just be a cheesy 80s horror movie and people would be all about like, oh my God, Bruce Campbell and Tom Atkins, you know, in a horror movie. This one's amazing. It's gonna be so funny and great. It's not. It's a legitimately smart, entertaining, you know, cop thriller that happens to have a, you know, slasher movie kind of aesthetic to it.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I agree with the interview when I was talking to Robert about it. He said, you know, you change just a few elements of this film, and it's a crime film. It's not a horror film at all, really. I mean, you could have easily done it to where the Maniac Cop was just a guy who survived this brutal attack, but he wasn't like as killer slasher guy. You know, he was just a crazy cop guy. You know, in which case, then we want to see him take on Charles Bronson in the crossover of Maniac Cop Death Wish.
Wish Mania.
Wish Maniac. Oh. I want to see this movie now. Wow.
Now, if you can work in Wishmaster with there you go. Like Julian Sands through the hourglass. Sorry, I'm bringing it back to the soaps.
Julian Sands through the hourglass. Oh man. Well, no offense to Mr. Atkins, I love him too, and everything I see him in. I'm going to say though, when the girlfriend, when she comes to him, and Teresa, when she's in trouble, and he's like, oh, you're in danger, and he gives the keys to his apartment, I'm like, Tom going, because he's Tom Atkins. Just I'm thinking of him from like Season of the Witch from Halloween 3. He's like, no, but he legitimately wants to protect her, and that's what I thought was interesting with his character is he even gets some depth. We talked about how he gets actually killed early, the kind of a cycle thing to where we've stuck with this guy for quite some time, and he gets killed a little bit earlier in the film than you expect, but Kara, they give the lieutenant a little bit of depth when they talk about how he was suicidal at one point. What'd you think of, a little bit of the character development they give his character? He's not just the crazy cop with the theory no one believes.
I think just all around it's good. The fact that it seems like most of the characters are fleshed out, they're well developed, so you actually invest, and that's what holds your interest. Whereas most slashers or horror films, everyone's very cookie cutter. We're just waiting for the next person to get picked off, and who cares what their high school dream was or what they wanted to do when they graduated.
Was that a dig at Scream? No, just kidding.
I'll blame that one on Never Been Kissed. There you go. That one scene where she's interviewing the high school kids, like, what is your biggest dream?
Yeah. I've actually seen that movie. I fully admit it. Yeah.
It's one of my wife's favorites. I haven't watched it.
Oh, is it really?
Time, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, I watch it
we're a big Drew Barrymore household here.
Same here. I'm a big Drew Barrymore fan, so I'll watch.
We recently rewatched it, so that's where that reference came from.
Nice. Nice. What about you, Ian? Do you agree they flesh these characters out a little more than you might expect? Again, I'm talking about expectations, but still, it's
Well, I think the more I think about this, the more I think it's almost like a low-key giallo film, because one of the key differences between this and what you'll see a lot in the 80s for slasher particularly, this is a movie about adults. Cohen and Lustig spent a lot of time with cops, kind of immersed in cop culture. I mean, you see the kind of the roll call room. There's that scene where Jack, when he's informed about his wife, when his superior officer kind of pulls him out of the roll call, and they have like that little two-shot by the window, and there's like this mild interrogation. It's like, I don't think you did this, but I kind of think you did this. And, he's kind of playing it cool. And Bruce Campbell's like, what, wait, why are you asking me about that? Like, what's going on here? So yeah, it not just like another dead teenager movie kind of a thing. It's it's a movie for grownups. I dug it.
Well, even in the beginning, the innocent, his first victim who dies horribly, she's a waitress at a cop bar. It's basically, they don't establish it, but there's a one line in there that she throws out there that makes you realize it's at least, cops visit the bar she works at as well. And she actually, I was impressed for how this film opened with her. She fought back fairly impressively, more so than you might think for a robbery or, the late night robber victim.
Was this, and it's been a little bit since I watched this, so was she was the one, she saw him in the park,
right? Yep.
And she went up to him, but because there were the two like gangbangers or the two hoods who were kind of chasing her. The detail I really liked is that not only did she see a cop and she went up to him and she thought she was saved, and it turns out it was the Maniac Cop, but the fact that we cut back to the two guys that were initially going to rough her up and possibly worse, they're like, wow, that's fucked up.
They didn't even bother to go up to the cop. They're just like, yeah, we're good. We're just going to go that way.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that she even fought back. My son, who normally doesn't watch horror films, watched this with me. My younger son, honorable son number 2, watched it with me. He actually enjoyed it. So, because it wasn't the straight horror film, and we were both commenting how we were rather impressed with this opening, lack of a better term, the opening victim, the first victim, how she fought back against the thugs. As my son called it, her bag foo was strong. Because they try to grab her purse, and you can tell she's lived in New York a while. So, they try to grab her purse, and she does this one move. After she socks the one guy, the other guy wraps her up with her arms, and rather like, oh, okay, here we go, she's going to be the victim or whatever, she turns around, puts her feet up on a rail, and kicks out. She kicks out and slams the guy against the car, and then she grabs her bag and hits the other guy a number of times. I'm sorry, I loved this scene, because normally when we get a scene like this, wouldn't you agree, Cara, a lot of times she becomes the victim, and then the cop would come in, kill the gangbangers, but then he kills her. But we don't quite get that here. She actually knows how to hold her own in this. So, I mean, I like this opening with her fighting back. What'd you think? Did it feel legitimate?
I didn't expect her to last as long as she did.
Mhm.
Same thing. I just kind of expected, somebody to get a good pummeling in, and down she goes.
Yeah, and then what I love, there's again all these little nuances that I notice even more watching this time. But so she's running, and she's got her purse strap slung cross shoulder so she could run with it. When she gets and hides in the playground for a while, and she sees the 2 guys are still following, she takes her purse off again and grabs it like she's gonna hit them. Like, it's a little move, but it's just those little things. And then, the way they shoot the Maniac Cop for most of this film is great, because you only see the light's always behind him. And in here, when she goes up to him, she's not a very tall person, and I think they chose her on purpose so they can make the Maniac Cop look even bigger. Never mind, Robert Z'dar is already a tall individual, but I mean, when she walks up to him, he looks like frickin' Sasquatch. But yeah, I mean, no, it's not a deep film, but I think this film holds up really well. Not a huge amount of gore. A lot of the deaths are through shadowy light, and that, I mean, even in the precinct, you can kind of see, but you never like fully see what goes on. Go ahead.
Let me ask you this. I can imagine sequelizing this movie because it's the late 80s, of course.
Well, yeah.
But what are the sequels like? Are they like other sequels to kind of classy one-offs? It's like, okay, now we're going to amp up the blood and the boobs and all, kind of degrade everything that the original was, or did it maintain some of the class?
It's been a while since I watched them. With them playing up the supernatural element more, they take a different approach. Each story is different. I don't think they're quite as well done as this first one. They fall a little bit more towards the tropes, which you try to avoid. This one seems to avoid, or at least tweak. But the sequels, they're not bad, but they are different than, I would say, than this first one. This first one definitely is more of the procedural versus the other two, which are definitely more of the slasher horror. As Robert mentioned, you get voodoo in there, you get the zombie angle in there. In the sequels, that doesn't spoil too much for you, but they are different. They are more horror stories than this one.
And did you do we ever see Robert Z'dar like out of the makeup? Is there like a Matt Cordell flashback to just him being a cop?
I don't remember one, but again, it's been a long time since I watched the sequels. I watched them all back to back a long time ago, but I normally just watch the first one because I enjoy this one the most. Yeah.
While we're on the subject of Robert Z'dar,
yes,
I hope no one is offended by this. I've always wondered, and I've not looked into it. He had a very unique look.
Yes,
he had like a really huge, like cheeks and chin. Was that just how he looked, or did he have some kind of a condition? I don't know what the deal was there.
I forgot. I apologize. I am not as versed in my trivia as I should be with him. I do know. I'm not sure if it was a condition or not. It's just how he looked. That's just was his normal look, as far as I'm aware. He was a Chippendales dancer for a while.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
He had a brief stint.
If hip walk, he'll kill you.
Well, we don't talk about the tips with the Chippendales dancers.
No, I don't think
that's the last thing you want when you're talking Chips and Dales.
But no, I feel like there's another connection here somewhere with the Magic Mike and Kevin Nash and Robert Z'dar. There's a film out there somewhere with those guys in it.
Thing is, he was a musician. That's what he mentioned in the interview, that he does have a degree. He did have a degree in music and acting. And looking up a little trivia, he did begin his career as a singer, keyboardist, and guitar player for a Chicago-based rock band called Nova Express. And the band performed as an opening act for Jefferson Airplane, The Who, and the Electric Prunes.
Not the Electric Prunes. Wow. No. Those guys were great. Sorry.
Yeah, right. I'm sorry. It is a condition. It's a genetic disorder that he's of called cherubism. Cherubism. Yeah, cherubism, okay. Which causes excessive bone growth in the lower face, which is what caused his enormous jawline. So there you go, folks. See, I made up for it. Sorry, I should have had that ready, prepared ahead of time.
No, I mean, thanks for sharing that, because I always wondered about, because he had a very unique look, and I just couldn't tell, what was going on there. If that was, well, I guess it is natural.
It is natural,
but yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, he fought cancer. He fought a heart attack. I mean, the guy. When I was talking over that weekend, I hope you guys don't mind me bringing it up, but when I was talking to him, apparently, like as soon as when I got a chance to talk to him, he had just gotten over cancer a few months prior. He had been given the clean bill of health. Apparently, the minute he got the clean bill, he was trying to get booked jobs. The guy just loved acting. He just loved it. That was his passion. So, as soon as he beat cancer, he's like, yeah, book me some jobs. And they're like, you got to take it easy, Robert. And he's like, no.
Did he die of cancer?
I forgot what he passed away from. I don't know if he came back. A heart attack. Oh. It was a heart attack that he suffered. He had some heart problems, but he died from cardiac arrest, unfortunately. And he had some films lined up that he talked about in the interview. A couple of those actually came to fruition. Some of them were released after his passing. I reviewed and interviewed someone who made High on the Hog, and that actually had another one. Sid Haig is in that one, but also Robert Z'dar is in that film as well. And they were able to shoot that, and it took a long time to produce that film, but they were able to shoot his scenes before, unfortunately, his passing. So, I mean, it comes through here. In all honesty, I think part of the reason that makes Maniac Cop work, and we'll wrap it up here in a little bit, but I think what part of the reason is his portrayal of Maniac Cop. You can tell he's all in on this character. I mean, there's some people who could have cashed it in with this. Just stand there and be. But I mean, he's got some emotion in it. There's some act. You can tell there's a little bit of effort, I think, put into his portraying the Maniac Cop that helped make it work a little better than, say a couple of, I won't say Jason's, but you know what I mean? Effort seemed to be put in was this character that could have easily been, cashed. Just, okay, I'm here. I'll dress as a cop and I'll just stand foreboding.
Yeah, he does. He does he has a tremendous presence, I think, in this movie. And it's also interesting because even though he is alive throughout this, we never really hear him talk. Yeah, you might get some grunts or something like that, but you don't even not even in the flashbacks. There's no like courtroom scene or him talking to anybody. Even in the shower scene, it's just they just come after him, and that's that. There's a real power in the fact that he was a person, but this almost puts him on that mythic level. We never see him as like a regular human being or a regular cop. He's a force of justice, quote unquote, when he's initially alive, and then he's a force of like crazed vengeance after he's dead.
Yeah, well, because even when his love of his life, the record keeper, which he's talking to him, he's not really responding back. She's talking and like having this conversation, with him, but he's not really responding.
So they've been married for quite a while.
Yeah.
Sorry. No.
Oh, and on that note, so I think I know what your answer is, but we'll just wrap it up. Unless there's something else about this film we didn't cover that you may want to talk about, Kara. Is there anything that you may want to talk about we didn't cover?
Not that I can think of. I think we pretty much went over everything.
Ian, how about you, sir?
I'm good.
So I think we'll go around the room real quick. Would you recommend the film, Ian?
800%, yes.
There you go. Kara, what about you?
Absolutely. Even in its non-spooky moments, it's still very entertaining.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's another thing with it that separates it a little bit from some other horror films is because even when you don't have creative, you're not just waiting for the creative kills. You're kind of engrossed in the story of how it's playing out. You're like, how's this gonna go? Even the low key moments, you're just like, yeah. And it's because this cast, they're known names in the geekdom, as Ian put it, familiar names, and to have them all in this one film that is made far better than you would probably expect a film named Maniac Cop from '88. I think is what has endeared it to today, and why people still like us. We're still talking about it today, and you see it still mentioned quite a bit. And why they're maybe making a remake is because it's one of those films that this is one of those gems. People ask, well, why do you watch B horror? I watch B horror because you watch the same, and then you come across a film like Maniac Cop and you go, this is what I've been looking for.
Yeah.
So, Kara, how are you at trivia? Want to do some trivia?
I can go for it. Depends on the day. See if the luck's with me.
Okay, we'll see if the luck is with you. Okay, so ladies, first you get to choose. And whoever wins, it'll be best out of 3. And whoever wins between you and Ian will get to take a stab at what our next horror of 1988 film will be. So you get 3 categories to choose from: action, comedy, or Oscar winners. Unfortunately, I have no horror. I'm sorry. But
I'll do action.
Action. All right. Good choice. Action films. Let's see. All right. And Ian, as always, a pick A or B?
B.
Okay. Oh, this one. Based on the 80s TV show, which movie sees 2 cops go undercover at a high school to bring down a drug ring?
21 Jump Street.
Correct. Hey, that's one for Kara. All right, Ian.
Yes.
Your turn, sir.
Oscars.
Oh, he's going for the challenging one. All righty. Kara, pick A or B? A. For which movie did Kevin Costner win an Academy Award for Best Director?
Best Director? Oh, was it Dances with Wolves?
Yes, it was.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, so there you go. All right. Kara, your turn. Comedy, action, or Oscar winners?
I'll try my luck with action again.
Action again. Ian, A or B?
A.
What was the name of the spaceship in Alien?
Nostromo.
Hey, there we go. All right. Awesome. That's 2 for Kara, 1 for Ian. Ian, what are you going for?
Comedy.
Comedy. Ooh. If it's a Freddy got fingered question, I will burn that card. I will burn the card.
You know what? No. You will not.
Okay. Kara, A or B for Mr. Ian?
A.
A again. What is the full name of the first movie in the Austin Powers series?
Austin Powers International Man of Mystery.
Okay, 2 and 2. All right. Here we go. Kara, you want to stick with action or you want a different one?
I'll do action again.
Okay. Action. All right. Ian, A or B?
B.
B. Who directed the 1990 movie Jurassic Park?
Probably wrong, but I want to say Spielberg. Wow.
Spielberg. That's his Chippendale's name. That's his Chippendale's name.
No, Spielberg is the hack director who directs all those asylum movies.
Oh, that's right.
Stealing left and right.
You are correct. It is, in fact, Steven Spielberg. All right. Ian, what category?
Action.
Action. All right. Kara, A or B?
B.
In Scott Pilgrim versus the World, how many evil X's does Scott have to defeat?
Had to be this freaking movie to knock me out, right? I hate Scott Pilgrim with the fury of 1,000 suns. 7.
I knew that too. Wow, good guess. You are correct. 7.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
All right. Okay.
I love Scott Pilgrim now.
All right, so we're tied up. We won't go too long tonight, so I'm going to type down a number, and it's going to be a number between 11 and 20. Okay? So, Kara, you get to guess first. Closest guess gets to take a stab. So, Kara, between 11 and 20, name the number.
9.
Between 11 and...
I just realized
okay.
what I did.
No, it's okay. I'm like, you can go with that, but that's definitely not going to be correct.
I may as well just go ahead and bleach my hair now.
Oh, wow. The opinions of the spoiler room do not match the opinions of Kara. No, just kidding.
It's okay. I said it about myself.
So between 11 and 20.
19.
Okay. Ian?
15.
Ian gets it. Sorry, Kara. Ian gets to take a stab.
What was the number?
16. So,
oh, okay.
All right. So, Ian, you get to take a stab, or you can defer. But,
I'll let Kara take a stab.
All right.
I'm on this show all the time, and we got a special guest. So
we do have a special guest.
If you don't mind, stab away, please.
Actually, you could stab me. I'm a horrible guest. I should have just said, Kara, you get to. So,
no.
You get to take a stab at what our next film for next month for the Horror of 88 will be. You get to choose a number. Again, this number will be, but this number will be 1 through 9. So choose a number.
Say 10.
Shut up. You get to choose a number between 1 and 9.
7.
7 it is, and let's take a stab. And look what Kara took a stab at number 7, which is Fright Night Part 2 from 1988. That will be our film for next month. What the theme will be may be around that. I was told by my wife that the next film that was chosen, I should tell her, and she may pick the films for the month. So whether or not they relate to Fright Night Part 2 or not, I'm going to give her a chance because domestic tranquility.
And the couch is lonely.
The couch is lonely but familiar. Anyway, So with that note, we do our license to shill here on the Spoiler Room. Hope you've enjoyed this Maniac Cop discussion. Kara, license to shill is yours. Please shill away.
I haven't really worked on anything new in a while, but I have tons of reviews up on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/horror retrospective. I'm mostly on Instagram lately. I'm doing a Lenten photo set theme, so that's horror_retrospective. I keep pretty much everything the same, so definitely some dark themed stuff over there for anyone interested in photography.
Cool. Definitely check that stuff out. Some great retrospectives on her channel. I watch them and always find things interesting. So definitely a great channel. And yes, folks, check that out. And Ian, as always, sir, license to shill, sir.
Well, I'm Ian Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com. I also have the Kicking the Seat YouTube channel, which you can find on YouTube under Kicking the Seat. We do weekly movie reviews, roundtables, interviews, all that good stuff. If you would like to read a couple of 3,300-word reviews about The Batman and the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you can find those on kickseat.com under the written review section. Be sure to bring some Kleenex because your eyes will bleed.
Oh, they aren't bad. I read them, though I don't exactly agree with them, but I read them, which is why I enjoy having you on the show, Ian, and I always enjoy having you on, Kara. Great perspectives. Always glad to have you in the Spoiler Room. You are always welcome. And yes, folks, we are on Patreon if you want to hear the before show talk, even though I call it after hours. I'll tell the story one day. And if you're really interested, soon you should have a series I occasionally do. It doesn't happen that often, called When the Credits Roll, in which it's just a raw audio of me recording with my son our discussions that we have immediately when the credits roll on a film we watch. And this one, I took him to see The Batman. And he is rather harsh critic, so I don't know where he got that from because I've been told I'm easy. But well, maybe they weren't referring to film criticism. Never mind. Anyway.
Well, you do have two kids, Mark, so.
On that note, we'll just say good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.